Good morning everyone. Well, it would be good afternoon to you guys. I'm actually shooting this the Saturday before my release and I never ever do that. I'm a kind of person who likes to prepare and then be prepared and then prepare on top of that. Basically decided to reshoot this video. I wasn't feeling the first one and felt a little bit demotivated and not in the right headspace, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, and especially because we're going through such a difficult time at the moment. The reason that I decided to put on a brave face and reshoot this video was actually because of my parents. They sent me a message yesterday and said that they were so proud of me and they saw my YouTube channel and I hadn't told them anything yet. So I mean, just those kinds of words of encouragement just go such a long way. So here I am shooting my video again. And on that note, I thought I would give a special shout out to all my new subscribers. I have been seeing you guys. Don't worry, you do not go unnoticed. So thank you so much for subscribing. To the newbies that are here today, please like and subscribe and follow me on my journey as an interior designer. My name is Zekhethelo, by the way. For those who do not know, let's get into this week's video. Don't mind me, I am having my cup of coffee. It is quite cold today in Cape Town. So without further ado, let's get into this week's video. Video 4. Okay, so this video is basically a video to define the different professions between an interior architect, an interior designer, and an interior decorator. So the reason I decided to shoot this video was to basically shed some light on some misconceptions on the interior design world, and also to help potential clients who want to use our services so that they know exactly who to go to. Last reason would be for any aspiring young South Africans who want to enter into this profession. I wish, when I was younger going into studying, I wish there were videos or content like this that I could watch and just to get a better understanding on the profession. Okay, before we get into defining the different professions, it's something quite noteworthy to know that before 2006, interior design was not recognized as a profession within the built environment. Within the built environment, you'll find your engineers, your quantity surveyors, or project and construction managers, and so on. And those professions prior to 2006 have been recognized. So in 2006, the IID, which is the African Institute of Interior Design Professionals, was established to basically recognize formally that interior design in South Africa is a profession. So the IID is the only professional body that represents interior designers in South Africa. So this body helps with various things. They assist interior designers on their career journey. So in this video, I will go through what qualifications or requirements that the IID has set out. Let's look at defining the three professions. I have represented the three professions in a pyramid-like structure, and where interior architecture is at the base, and that's like the foundation of the interior design world. Interior architecture and interior design, they're quite interchangeable professions because the lines between each role has been blurred, and the need for interior designers to also take on this architectural world in terms of the internal shell of a building has really pushed us interior designers to fulfill the role of interior architects, even if we haven't studied that profession. When I describe or when I define the two, you will see a lot of similarities, but like I mentioned, interior architecture is the foundation. If we look at an interior architect, they typically would have good knowledge on building regulations. They'll have an in-depth understanding on the structure of the buildings in order to make sure that these buildings are safe and perform the correct function for their use. So in essence, interior architects can gut the inside of a building completely and reimagine the space to whatever new use that the brief describes. The easiest way to describe an interior architect is to think of what an architect typically does, but they do it for the internal shell of a building. If we look at the IID, if we look at their site, they say you require a minimum of a full-time 5-year degree, basically attaining your master's, and then you would also need a minimum of 2 years of practical experience. So an interior designer has a high level of technical skills. They have an in-depth understanding of interior construction and materials. They are good communicators and have the ability to take the designs from their head and effectively put them out on paper for a contractor to read and construct what they have designed. They have the ability to work on the overall internal building scheme, and then in turn being able to focus in on those smaller details to make sure that it achieves the correct aesthetic. I think this is the most important thing that people don't realize is problem solving. We are so good at problem solving because you will go on site and there are constantly small issues that might not have been able to pick up, especially with renovations, that demands you to have to think on your feet. So you have to creatively solve problems. And if you want to go into this profession, I really recommend you doing maths. And I hated problem solving in maths, but now, years later, I'm really realizing how important just that level of thinking and that kind of mindset has helped me in my career. Interior designers typically perform various tasks on projects, and this is also the same for interior architects. So typically on projects, we will engage with the client to get a better understanding on the brief. We will analyze the space. Then from that, we do what we call space planning. That's basically reimagining this empty shell and redesigning it for its new intended purpose. With this, we look at hard finishes. So when I refer to hard finishes, which I'll refer to this a lot, mainly referring to things like your floor finishes, your tiling in your bathrooms, your ceilings, and so on and so forth. We also work hand in hand with our various consultants, like the quantity surveyors who will keep us in check on bigger projects with our budget, and as well as our engineers. So with our engineers, what we typically engage them on is the services that we would find in a building. We coordinate on these services to ensure that there aren't pipes sticking out in the middle of your floor slab in your lounge. So it's basically making sure that we prevent any weird snags that could happen. And we design around like structural beams, for instance, and make sure we either highlight them, or if we don't want to highlight them, how can we make sure we conceal them in an aesthetic way that still achieves what we're going for. So from there, with all the consulting, we will produce detailed drawings. These drawings, we actually really look at every single junction in an interior building. So any corner that intersects with each other, we will come up with the detail that makes it look as aesthetically pleasing as possible, and that works. Then we'll have another layer of design where we design all your joinery. And when I talk about joinery, I'm talking about your built-in cupboards, your walk-in closets, your kitchens, your vanities, even your headboard. Sometimes we'll even go into furniture. I've done a lot of bed designs, for instance. So after we've done all this designing, we've done all the drawings, it's time to go on site. So typically on site, we go once every week or once every 2 weeks, depending on how big the project is, and we engage with the contractor. Site with the contractor can be very daunting, especially if you're new. It's a lot of like biggish men, and you know, being a small woman in this industry, but one of the few women on site, it can be quite daunting, but it is a lot of fun. On site, there are always problems on site. There's always something going wrong. So again, this is where the problem solving comes in. You have to be able to think on your feet. And this is why having a contractor who has the same goal or same vision in mind, because they are there to also help you. After the project is complete, well, once we've reached practical completion, we will go back onto site and basically do a snagging exercise. Snagging is basically us going on site to check that all the drawings that we have issued have been implemented correctly. So we go around room by room, floor by floor if it's a big building, and check every single detail and make sure it's up to the standard that we are happy with and that our clients would be happy with. So it's basically that one last final sweep, and then we issue a long list to the contractor. They hate us snagging, but it's all worth it at the end because it all gets done beautifully and it produces a beautiful product. Now we have our hard finishes, the internal layouts are done, and we're moving into decorating the space. Interior designers, interior architects also perform the duties of an interior decorator. So that basically covers the roles or the definition of an interior designer. If we go back to the IID website and see what qualifications or requirements you need to qualify as a professional interior designer, on the website it says you need a minimum of a 3-year full-time degree or diploma from an accredited educational institution. And then you also need a minimum of 3 years of practical experience. Interior decorator is mainly concerned with the final touches. So that would mainly be an aesthetic kind of profession where they do furniture layouts for you and they will choose specific furniture, rugs, curtains and the like. An interior decorator will style your space according to whatever mood or style you're going for. We look at the IID, you need a minimum full-time 1-year qualification, and this could be from an online learning site, and with that you need a minimum of 5 years of practical experience. And like I said, you don't have to necessarily study to be an interior decorator. It says on the website that if you, I think this is what my understanding is that you can be qualified as an interior decorator if you have a minimum of 6 years experience. So the thing with interior decorating, it's honestly like if you have the passion for aesthetics, for beautifying internal spaces, it's something that I don't necessarily think you can really study for. You do need to kind of have a creative eye. I mean, you can study anything and be great at it, but to be an amazing decorator, I think you just have to have that like special creative desire and flair to be able to be one of the greats. So that covers defining the 3 professions. And as you can see, the roles between an interior architect and an interior designer are quite interchangeable. We move between the 2 spheres, but as an interior decorator, it's kind of impossible to move down. You would have to definitely study because of the technical aspects that are required, as well as, I didn't even touch on the software that we use to create these 3D spaces and to create these floor plans. So to close off this segment, I would just like to finish off with a quote from Raymond Kornick. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. This quote is him describing interior design, so I'm just going to read it. The discipline is the art and science of the design of designated spaces, investigating relationships between user, object, and spatial envelope. I just thought it fit so well because it is indeed an aesthetic career as well as quite technically driven. So there is that science aspect that balances it out. So that covers video number 4 and the 3 professions. I hope this was very informative for anyone who's aspiring to be a designer or a client who's looking to hire one of the professions. And if you guys liked this video, which I'm sure you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe and please turn on your notifications. We'll be posting videos weekly. And definitely stay tuned because, you know, explaining all of this is hard in itself, but seeing it in reality is what will really make you understand the ins and outs of an interior designer and the cogs in the machine that make beautiful spaces happen. So stay tuned and keep safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.